Kathy, are you all right? Kathy, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Um, Hi, everyone. I'm Cathy Popovitch. I'm the Deputy Director of the Illinois State Archives and CoSA President. Um, I would say it's so nice to see you all, but I can't actually see you. So I will just say that it's so nice to be in your presence. Um, I did really enjoy seeing all of you that were able to join us in St. Louis last week. It was a real pleasure to see some familiar faces and to meet a lot of new people that were able to join us. For those of you that were not able to attend, we're going to share a little bit about the week. Um, to start, I will go through some of the highlights. Um, let's see, sorry, I lost my spot here. And then we're going to hear from Sarah Baxter from Tennessee, who was our first time attendee, one of many. Then we'll close with some thoughts from the crowd about what worked well this year and what you'd like to see for next year. So here are your presenters for the day. You may have already seen in the CoSA News brief that we had about 125 attendees last week, attendees from 40 member institutions. All 5 territories were represented. Our attendees included our members, our sponsors, and other guests. One number that I'm particularly happy to share is that we have 43 first-time CoSA attendees. So I think this really speaks to CoSA's efforts to reach all of its membership, including staff and our territorial members. So it's really heartening to see so many new faces and to really see all of our first-timers jump in with such enthusiasm. So the week actually started off with a territorial summit on Tuesday. This was held as part of CoSA's IMLS Aware Grant, which stands for Archives Working Across Remote Environments. So the summit was an opportunity for project consultants and representatives from participating institutions to meet in person, to discuss findings, their findings to date, and to identify priorities for moving forward and to plan for the remainder of the grant cycle. Let's see here. The opening plenary kicked off on Wednesday afternoon with a greeting from our Illinois and Missouri hosts. We also had the traditional transfer of the Cape of Power. I think Jamie's What Would Dolly Do pin from Tennessee is probably my favorite so far. So after those introductions, we heard from Jay Trainer from the National Archives and Records Administration. Jay is NARA's executive for agency services. So he is responsible for NARA's nationwide efforts to service the records management needs of their federal agencies and to also represent the public interest in the transparency and accountability of those records. So Jay spoke about the different duties and responsibilities of his unit. That includes their Federal Records Center program, the Information Security Oversight Office, and the National Declassification Center. So he provided a good overview of some of the challenges that they're facing, some of the innovations they're implementing, and I think what stuck out to me about his talk is the overlap or the similarities in the work that we do in our states. So we really have a common mission, common goal. I think we're facing some similar challenges in terms of finding ways to be more efficient and navigating access to the records in their care. And if you haven't seen it, haven't had the opportunity to watch the 60-minute segment on the National Archives that came out right after the conference or kind of right around that time, which was pretty cool. So if you haven't seen it, I would encourage you to check that out. But it was really good to hear from Jay. Following his talk, our sponsors and vendors had the opportunity to participate in a lightning talk. I had never witnessed one of these before, and it was kind of fun. Each representative had about 3 to 4 minutes to give a quick pitch about the organization. It felt a little bit what I imagine speed dating is like. But CoSA did a great staff of keeping them on time, keeping them on their toes. But this was a really nice introduction to our sponsors. You can kind of see in that top middle picture there, they're all lined up, ready to go. But it was a nice introduction to them. I know that there were a few vendors there that I did not know much about. So getting a quick pitch was helpful. I think it really greased the wheels for our members to visit their tables and learn more about what they've got to offer. And here's all of our vendors. Some of our vendor tables are fantastic silent auction, which really did great this year. So thank you to everybody who both donated and put bids in. I think we landed around about a little under $2,000, so that's fantastic. Let's see, one of my favorite parts of the conference really was the affinity groups. The annual meeting planning committee came up with a list of areas of interest that attendees could choose from. We all broke up and had 2 different sessions where we discussed those different issues. So there were tables discussing advocacy, SHRABs, reference outreach. There was a whole separate area for a number of different electronic records discussions. I think what I appreciated about this model was that there was a bit of something for everyone. So I talked to one of our members who in the first session, they were able to share a lot about the practices that they do in their institution. And they kind of use that as an opportunity to reflect on those practices. But in the other session that they were in, they had really very limited experience with the subject matter. I think they were talking about outreach, and they didn't do a lot of outreach. So they were able to come away with that from that with a lot of brand new ideas to implement and to experiment with. My first group was with advocacy. We spoke a little bit about our efforts in our own institutions, some large and small successes. We identified some areas of interest that our institutions, in the future could kind of combine our powers to advocate for. I also joined the SHRAB table, and this ended up being a great opportunity to share our ideas, some of our thoughts and concerns with Jacob Lusk. He's the new state board programming grant lead at NHPRC. So having him there to join us and hear from us and give some of his feedback was really a fantastic opportunity. I always find it very interesting to hear how other state SHRABs are doing, the kinds of projects they're doing, and I definitely had a few takeaways from that discussion of things that we could try implementing with our SHRAB here in Illinois. So that I think that the affinity groups went over really well. Thursday morning, we started off with a delicious breakfast sponsored by Apex, so thank you to them. And then we celebrated our colleagues with the award ceremony sponsored by Family Search. I want to again congratulate all of our award winners. It's really inspiring to see all of their work, all of the work that our members are doing in their institutions, and to be able to gather and applaud those accomplishments was a real treat. So we are very grateful to Family Search and our other sponsors for making that happen. After that, we jumped into our educational sessions. One of my colleagues here in Illinois, he summed up my feelings pretty well. He wished that he had a clone of himself so that he could attend more than one session. And I completely agree. We had some fantastic discussions going on, and I hated to miss any of them. So I think that's a really good problem to have. A couple of ones that stuck out to me, Anna and Matthew from Nebraska shared their experiences. They were migrating legacy finding aids into A-Space. We just went through a similar migration process ourselves, and we're still doing cleanup. So I can empathize with their situation. It was really helpful to hear about their methods too, and compare them to our approach. I also really appreciated the discussion around tricky access restrictions. A few members of my team from Illinois were on that panel, and I appreciated hearing from other states, both on the panel and in the discussion. This was really kind of an open discussion, less so than a presentation, but it was, I really appreciated hearing other states and how they're kind of navigating those situations. On Thursday, we also had our working lunch, which was generously sponsored by Ancestry. Jared from Ancestry welcomed us, spoke a little bit about their mission, their purpose as an organization. Unfortunately, we ran out of time to watch their video, but I watched it earlier this week, and in true Ancestry fashion, it had me tearing up a little bit. They really get you. So I would encourage you to check it out. It features gymnast Gabby Douglas and her mother kind of discovering their history, their roots. I won't spoil anything for you, but they do discover, you know, some ancestors that served in the Civil War fighting against slavery. They uncover another ancestor with similar interests as Gabby. So it's a very well done video. Again, when we're done here, go watch it. We did the working lunch a little bit differently this year. It was a little more unstructured. We divided the attendees up and made an effort to mix in our first timers with some of the more veteran members. We split up states and our sponsors. We split up the board as well so that we could really get everyone to meet some new folks, and we left it up to the group to really lead their own discussions. I just so happened to be at a table where we all managed people in some way, shape, or form. So that became the topic of discussion for us. Speaking to some of our members, other tables to discuss digital record centers, social media outreach, work from home situations and staffing levels, lots of different topics. So again, depending on the interest of the group is really how the conversation went. And I think that went really well for a lot of folks. On Friday, we welcomed our territorial colleagues in a conversation about their institutions, the AWARE grant, and some of the unique challenges they face. This was a really nice opportunity to get to know the territories a little bit better. And I think a lot of the discussion was eye-opening for the rest of us. So as an example, I have been frustrated. A few years ago, the guy who fixed our microphone readers that was local moved away, and now we have to have somebody from 3 hours away drive down here when we have an issue. But I feel a bit better about that when Karen Gray from Alaska shared that it's more cost effective to ship their equipment back to the company to make adjustments or fix any issues, because there's just no one nearby that can come on site to do that work. One of our newer sponsors, Conserve, as part of their sponsorships, sent one of their units to the archives in American Samoa, excuse me. And when all was said and done, it costs more to ship and deliver the unit than the system actually costs. So again, those are just a few examples of what our colleagues are looking at. I'm thankful that they were willing to discuss and share with us. I'm really looking forward to seeing the outcomes of the AWARE grant. I think that's going to be a great project. And our final picture here down on the bottom, we had wanted to come up with some kind of tradition to close out the plenary. We thought, well, wouldn't it be great if we announce the location of our next meeting and do some kind of passing of the torch? That sounds like a great idea, except that we don't have our next meeting location finalized. So we still wanted to do some kind of symbolic, again, kind of passing of the torch, I think Joy found this lovely pineapple. So Dave Jones from Illinois and John Dugan from Missouri as our hosts passed the pineapple and asked Ken Williams from Utah to hang on to it until we finalize our meeting location. Let's see. And no conference would be complete without a few field trips. On Wednesday morning, a group visited the National Personnel Records Center Annex in Valmeyer, Illinois. So for those of you who don't know, you can kind of see it here. This record center it's located in a limestone cave, and it's really an impressive facility. I'm glad folks got a chance to tour there. The Thursday evening reception was held at the Missouri Historical Center near Forest Park. Thanks to the Friends of the Missouri State Archives, we were treated to drinks and hors d'oeuvres in the beautiful library and history center. And we were able to talk with their staff, view some of their collections, including they had Clark's field book from the Lewis and Clark expedition, Alexander Hamilton letters, lots of really fun things. My staff was particularly excited about their map cases, as any good archivist would be, but saw some really unique materials there, and that was a really nice evening. And then finally on Saturday, we were so thrilled to host about 40 of our members at the Illinois State Archives in Springfield. Visitors got a tour of our building. They got to see some fun things from our collection. Dave Jones gave his world famous tour of the beautiful state capitol building. We were treated to a behind the scenes tour of the Abraham Lincoln Presidential Library Museum. Living here, I've been here there a number of times, but that was really special. It kind of went all out for us because of the uniqueness of our group. The picture here on the bottom left, that's Dr. Ian Hunt. He's their chief of acquisitions, and he is showing one of their copy of the Gettysburg Address. So for them to pull those kind of things out for us was really special. So that was a really great trip. And I thank everybody who was able to come down for that. So those are kind of the highlights, a few of my takeaways. As I mentioned, we had a lot of first timers, and so we thought it would be great to hear one of those first timers, their perspective. So we are joined by Sarah Baxter from Tennessee. And Sarah, if you are ready, I will go ahead and pass things over to you.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Kathy. I'm Sarah Baxter. I'm from the Tennessee State Library and Archives, and I work in like our archives outreach and development department. So in Tennessee, county records stay with the counties. We don't collect county level records at the State Library and Archives. So part of my job is to work with counties and regional archives to set up their own archives or records management systems. So a lot of the sessions that I went to at this CoSA meeting were really helpful to me, coming from that perspective. So the first day, the affinity groups, I also found it really helpful to go to the SHRAB one. I'm our deputy state coordinator in Tennessee, and it's always really interesting and helpful to hear what other SHRABs are doing and just get new ideas, because sometimes it's kind of hard to come up with new ideas constantly when you're working in just like kind of an insular group. So it was good to hear from everybody and to meet Jacob in person, because we had only just been emailing up until then. So it was good to meet him. And then for the educational sessions, one of the ones I found really interesting and helpful for myself as a first-time attendee and for my job that I have now is the one about setting up records centers offsite storage that was given by Emily from New York State Archives. And those are the types of conversations that I'm usually having with people. For my job at the county level, I'm working with county officials or county archivists to set up their own archives. So they have to think about their spatial planning and other features of their building, like the HVAC and windows and water systems and just how to set all of that up. So some of those concepts weren't necessarily new to me, but it was an engaging session because she opened it up to be more conversational. So I heard a lot of other ideas from different people and places and things that I hadn't even thought of before. Like we had a discussion about even which direction your dock opening faces, depending on where the sun would be that time of day for which part of the country you're in. So that was just kind of interesting to hear things from that perspective. And I took a lot of notes to bring back to kind of add to my discussion points that I usually bring up when talking to people about finding those storage sites. Another session that I found really interesting and maybe a little overwhelming, but it was good to think about was the email archiving project that Virginia was doing with their governor's papers, because I know that's something we're already facing and will continue to face. And again, from the perspective of me working with local archivists, that's something that they're starting to face too. A lot of counties are going to e-filing systems for their records, so there's a lot more born digital happening. And it just kind of was a reminder to think about coming back and talking with my colleagues and my boss, Jamie Awalt, about kind of being better about setting up some guidelines and things to think about to help guide people through that in the future, especially when they might not have the resources or the type of funding that some of us might have at the state level that they wouldn't have at the local level. So I took a lot of notes during that too, and hopefully those notes make sense to me next week when I read them again. And then the last session that I found helpful and interesting was the outreach session done by North Carolina and Illinois collectively. I always love hearing other people's ideas and programs that they've put on that have worked well. That's something else that we're working on in Tennessee, is doing more outreach and workshops and things. So I loved North Carolina's idea of doing trivia nights. I thought that was really fun, and I kind of was thinking on a smaller scale, I could take that back and kind of use that as maybe kind of like an icebreaker or an opening engagement session during some of my workshops, and kind of get people talking and do something fun before we get into more serious matters. So I thought that was a really good idea and something I'd never thought of before. And then it was interesting to hear that Illinois also recently did some conservation workshops in their state, and we also did some in Tennessee last year. So it was interesting to kind of compare what they did versus what I had done and kind of get some different ideas and take that back with me. But I really appreciated that CoSA was opened up to anyone this year. For someone who's not in a leadership position, and I don't really have a lot of decision-making power in my job, but I do appreciate being able to see all the other projects and meet people from other places that maybe have similar jobs to me or don't. It's just nice to have perspective and kind of remember that coming back. It's easy to kind of get sucked into my one position and like my one focus. And so it's good to have perspective and keep in mind the bigger picture of things. I already talked to some of my colleagues when I got back, and we've already come up with a potential idea for a presentation for us to do together, hopefully next year in Utah, maybe. So thanks for letting me share.
Oh, thanks so much for sharing, Sarah. It was really nice to meet you in the conference, and I'm glad you got a lot out of it. So I see that Karen from Alaska has joined us. She just recently got home, like last night, and we weren't sure if she was going to be able to join. So we're not going to put her too much on the spot, but I would like to offer a few minutes, offer you the floor for a few minutes to maybe provide some insights into the pre-conference territorial summit and some of your thoughts from that.
Okay, and good morning from Alaska. And I might repeat a little bit of what Cathy has already said, but we had a pre-summit for the territories and non-contiguous states as part of CoSA's Land Alliance Planning Grant, AWARE, or archivists working across remote environments. And the first thing I can say that we discovered we all have in common is what you might hear today, which you might hear a little buzzing background, or I might cut in and out. So connectivity is an issue with us non-contiguous states. So hopefully hopefully you'll be able to hear some of what I say. We were really excited. We got to meet each other in person and our consultants, Sarah Tansey and Tony Wong Smith. The states represented are the two newest states in the Union, who just both happen to be non-contiguous, Alaska and Hawaii. There were 3 territories, Guam, the U.S. Virgin Islands, and U.S. Samoa, as well as 2 Commonwealths, Northern Marianas Islands and the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico. And so again, we got to meet each other, and unfortunately, Ray from Northern Marianas Islands didn't make it in time. This is one of our big things we have in common, which is travel issues. He was delayed by a typhoon. I myself, as was mentioned, just got in really late last night, so bear with me while I drink my coffee this morning. But we usually plan 2 to 3 days of travel time, and I suspect that's the same for the territories too, so we have that in common. What this grant will do is look at the things that we do have in common, but then talk about a little bit more of the challenges that we have as non-contiguous parts of the United States. We all, just like you, have staffing issues, procurement issues, building issues, all kinds of issues. It's the additional little challenges that we have, not being on road systems, not being part of the contiguous U.S., that this grant's really going to look at and hopefully come up with guidance and papers that we can give our funders, whether it's federal or state folks, that they can look at and see what can be done to help us out. So we learned so much from each other. It was more than we've actually gotten to talk about in our zooming to each other. So it was great to learn that, you know, the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico are actually working with some European archives and organizations from the countries they were previously colonies of for some of their digitization efforts. Because sometimes it's easier for them to go to Spain or the Netherlands than to get some of that funding from the U.S. federal government. Another thing some of you might have heard us talk about and don't know as much about is the Jones Act, which affects our shipping and procurement. And it really has to do, you know, it was made, I believe, in 1909. It has to do with shipping, particularly the merchant marines. And if you're shipping things to any of us non-contiguous places, you have to have a U.S.-made ship going from a U.S. port to a U.S. port. So it makes, you know, getting shipments on barges and ships to us, or even, this also applies to U.S. air carriers, a little more difficult to get us supplies and such. So we all say, the Jones Act. You got to hear us gripe a bit about it without us really explaining it a bit. I learned that, you know, it's difficult for some federal funding and grants that are just not available to the territories. So that hopefully will be something to look into. And as I mentioned again, a lot of us have hiring issues. Folks, you know, not as many folks applying for our government archivist jobs. But what we have in common is it's harder to get folks to apply to us because you would actually have to travel to us. We all have high cost of living. So what are you going to do? Are you going to really try to recruit from outside of your area? Or are you going to try to find some homegrown solution where you can get more of your local or indigenous populations interested in our field? So these are more of the challenges we have. And of course, travel. So, you know, just getting to and from us takes a little bit extra effort. But I was really inspired, and it was really great to meet everybody. And I think it's just going to bring a lot more conversations along too. And hopefully, as we learn more about each other, we'll be able to pass on all that information to you because it might actually help you in your programs in ways you hadn't thought of. So thank you very much.
Great. Thank you so much, Karen. Thanks for sharing that perspective with us and joining us on, I'm assuming, very little sleep. So that's really what we've got as in terms of the formal presentation today. But I'd like to open it up to those of you here that were able to attend last week. If you want to provide your own personal perspective of the conference, or if anyone wants to share something that they hope to see in 2025, you know, it's never too early to start planning. So feel free to chime in the chat, or I think we can unmute folks if you want to say a few words. While you're prepping your questions, I want to mention too that for those who joined us last week, we do have some surveys out. One is a survey for your thoughts and feedback on the conference, kind of more in general. And then the other will allow you to provide feedback on individual sessions. So please take the time to do those. Those are really helpful. Again, particularly since, you know, we're looking towards next year already. We want to know what you all want to see, and we can really kind of start planning some of that. Yeah, so Lisa mentioned in the chat, if you would like to speak, go ahead and raise your hand and someone will unmute you.
Sarah, I think you should be able to talk, and Rachel, you should be unmuted also.
Okay, thanks. I didn't want to just start talking. Thanks for unmuting me, Lisa. I just wanted to throw out to the group, I had a great conversation with a representative from Ancestry about some thoughts and ideas that she has been kicking around about ways that they could simultaneously promote America 250, but do it within the confines of something that would also promote the state archives. So that's still in development, but I wanted to throw it open to the group since a lot of you were there and talked about A250, or those of you that couldn't be there. Couple of different thoughts that had come up, both in our conversation as well as later on when we had a private conversation, included possibly maybe a portal that would spotlight state archives and highlight constitutional documents. You know, maybe make it something easy that it had a template for each state, and we could upload information on that so that they could then promote state archives. She also had explored a couple ideas of smaller collections that they could digitize that may be great ways to promote genealogy in the states. And one of her thoughts was early state censuses. I don't know how widely those are held in all states, but maybe we could also collaborate on a collection or two idea that we mostly hold in common, and that might be of interest to them or interest to genealogists, that they could do some digitization and highlight that. So just wanted to throw that out there. I was really pleased that they're thinking about us specifically, our community specifically, in terms of how we can work together on promoting America 250, as well as you know, what they do for the genealogical community. And I had shared with her that I felt very strongly, I've worked with a lot of Heritage Society partners, and that's great, but I also like to encourage genealogy for exploration and for the history of it, not that it has to lead to I'm in the society of whatever or the group of whatever. So anyway, just wanted to throw that out there for everybody, and I'll try to follow up with maybe within our America 250 affinity group within CoSA, but feel free to email me if you have thoughts about that. Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. Rachel?
Hi, this is Rachel Frazier from the Maryland State Archives, and I really just wanted to say the sessions were so informative and helpful, and I really appreciated the affinity groups. Getting to discuss topics with archivists from throughout the states was great for bringing these ideas back to our own archives, the states and territories, hearing from such creative ideas. And being in the reference and outreach affinity groups were encouraging as we keep trying to find new ways to reach our communities. So I really hope affinity groups can be a permanent part of our future meetings. They're a very unique experience and so beneficial. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. When we started kind of planning this meeting, I feel like that was one of the first things that was put on the table, because it's been used in other kind of regional organizations, and people have raved about it. And yeah, so far that's all the feedback we've gotten is just how nice it is to kind of sit and just talk through these certain issues, which that's always my favorite part of conferences is, you know, the educational sessions are fantastic. But I really get the most out of like going to lunch and you just happen to bring up a conversation about a certain topic of interest to you. So finding a way to do that with the affinity groups to get it a little focused was, I think it was well received, and I hope we hang on to that model as well.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rachel. John Dugan asked in chat, was there anyone who was not able to attend because of the location? So yeah, we'll see if anybody has an answer for John. Okay, and Sarah's comments about hope our vendors felt incorporated. I believe we have a separate survey going out to the vendors, so we'll get their feedback and be able to share that with you. A couple of the vendors I spoke with were very encouraged that they actually got to talk so much more productively in this environment. It wasn't hurried, it wasn't pressured, and they expressed their pleasure in being able to be with us. Anybody else have any comments? Let's see what else we've got. Okay. Oh, so here's what we should have asked in the starting question was, what color room did you get?
I had a very lovely blue. I I've seen pictures of the other rooms, and I think I'm okay that I didn't get red, but mine was lovely blue. And actually, and I did not plan this, but I will tell everybody that I did. My shoes on one of the days perfectly matched my room, so I think it was meant to be.
Great.
Yeah,
We had, I had yellow, and it was bright but lovely.
Yeah.
So
it looks like we've got a good mix of room colors. I didn't see many with yellow, but I'm seeing at least one in the chat, so, or two in the chat, so that's good.
I would say, so the hotel had a total of, I think 145 rooms. And we made a contract with them on the low side since we really had no idea how many folks would come. And I think our original contract was for about 75 rooms. And we ended up filling, I think, 101. So we basically sold out the hotel for them, which they were thrilled with, but it did mean that we definitely had all of every room type. The only one that I couldn't talk anybody into was the bunk bed room because they had bunk beds.
I hope the eye pillows didn't scare anybody off.
Jeff, my husband, Jeff was with us as well, and he was really hoping we would have had our business meeting so that we could have brought one of the eye pillows into the meeting and had a vote and just like held it up and like the eyes have it. Like he was just really hoping for that moment, and I told him no.
Yeah, everybody's saying that to put the pillows away. In my room, I had a painting of the room over my bed that included the eye pillow in the painting. So I had the eye pillows, and then I had the eye pillow painting staring at me. But that's all right. And it looks like people were pretty pleased with the venue. This was definitely a unique location, and we thought it might be a little bit of a risk, but I think it turned out pretty well. I'm glad everybody was on board with it.
Anybody else have any other comments? We've got some time. This is your chance. What did you think? Those of you who are, I've seen several names of people who were there. Um,
Well, I was just seeing John's comment where he appreciated that the vendors brought some technical staff along with them. And that was something that we told them they should do. So we will definitely pass along that that was appreciated. I think Karen has her hand raised too.
okay.
I do want to pass along a comment. I got to talk to our staff for 5 minutes this morning before coming on board, and our electronic records archivist was really thrilled on the working groups and working together on policy. And I found it very helpful too. It is great to actually talk with groups and talk through policies. And so that was a nifty highlight too, to be able to have that.
Yeah, the feedback on the working session. So that was our member only time. The vendors were dismissed. We let everyone have space to work on things. That one, I feel like we have more room for improvement. Some folks, I mean, like one of the sessions, we followed the Pomodoro method pretty okay. And then we had lunch, and lunch discussions were so great. I didn't want to break anybody up, but there was a whole group of people who just put themselves back to work, which I thought was fantastic. But then we also didn't have the structure during the second time. So I would love more feedback on how we can make that more effective too, as you think about things.
Josh Hager has a question or comment. Go ahead,
Hey,
Josh.
everybody. Hi. Let's see. There we go. So something I led 2 of the electronic records discussions during the affinity group day, and was coming from discussion as well in the working group. I was in the outreach working group. Something that came out of that is I think there's definitely an interest in having more virtual opportunities throughout the year to chat through various topics. And I know we have chatting with CoSA and chatting with Siri, but trying to get the word out, trying to find maybe potential times that would work and getting that situated. But there were a lot of people that were talking to me like, we really enjoyed Steer. We love coming to the conference, but we just like having a chance to communicate, whatever our concerns are at the moment with other people who are practicing it, who are dealing with it. So I think maybe continually pushing for our chatting with whoever programs, whether they're focused on a particular area or more broad, would be something that I came out of it as something that our membership, and I know specifically the staff members, would really enjoy having.
Thank you, Josh. All right. There's been some comments in the chat. There's a group plug-in for Santa Fe too as a location for a meeting. So looks like the board will have a lot of choices.
Just going back to Josh's comment, Becky did post, we are starting to try some more affinity group type conversations. The next one coming up is America 250. They have kind of decided to meet quarterly-ish, at least for the time being. We also launched, no, that was the Shrab one. The Shrab one is the next one coming up that Becky posted a link. We also have America 250. That one, they haven't picked their next date, but we're going to get one on the calendar and make sure those conversations are going. The good news for everybody, I hope, is that CoSAs will be migrating to a new member management system, and we will soon have a calendar, yay, where we can advertise all of these things and really start to plan out conversations that can happen more regularly. Because we know from experience that this group appreciates a calendar hold much more than like a listserv or email communications. And if you are interested in hosting something specifically, let us know. It can be you're willing to host the first 3 and then pass it along, something as easy as that. But we've discovered that the groups who have a host are much more successful than the ones that don't have a specific host. So please let the CoSA team know if you'd like to host something.
Okay, Kathy, I'm not seeing any more hands. Last call. Anybody else want to say anything or comment or share something? Or I wish we would have. I hope we always. I hope we never. You know,
I'd love to know if there was something missing. If we've received a lot of positive feedback, which is fantastic, but also we're in the business of taking critical comments at this point since it was our first one. I know, like, elevator navigation, managing food lines, kind of the typical ones, but was there an element of the meeting that you really felt we missed? John?
I was just going to compliment us on the fact that we could find our way through mazes, different floors and elevator paths and things. It just shows how good of researchers we are, I think.
I love that interpretation of it. Yes. I mean, to be honest, I really did, as we were searching for hotels, we looked at a lot of different options, and I know that a small independent boutique arts hotel was maybe a stretch in some cases, but it's for sure something that most government employees don't get to go to on work money. And I felt like that was a good thing. So I can't guarantee that we will find another small boutique arts hotel again, but I will keep my eye open for things that are a little bit different.
Josh in the comments said maybe allow for a few education sessions to be a little bit longer if there are more presenters. I think that's definitely a good point. I had someone recommend to me too, there was like more of a lightning talk that was meant to be more conversational with the attendees, and that was done right. It was done in the afternoon. We were all kind of low energy. And so they recommended maybe do that in the morning when everybody's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. So thanks, Josh. I think that's a good point. We can keep that in mind, and definitely depending on the session topics we get, we can look to see how we can flex that schedule a little bit.
One of the other questions maybe that would be very useful is the actual length of the meeting, because part of that question, part of how long each session will be is determined by how long our meeting is. So this one was designed so that theoretically an individual could attend with most individuals, not you, Karen. Most individuals could attend and only stay 2 nights. So we had a half day Wednesday, full day Thursday, half day Friday. So you could come in on Wednesday and theoretically leave on Friday. Was that too short? Was it too long? What are some thoughts on how many hotel nights would you expect to stay at a conference like this? You can type it in the chat. We should have done a poll. And Jonathan says 3. Okay. So we're looking for that sweet spot between 2 or 3, but not 5 or 6. I think we had some extra space this year for the summit and the board met earlier. And then we also had the excursions on both ends of the trip too.
David Ware is questioning your Pomodoro method. His mind is moved toward Italian food.
So it's not the sauce, David. It's actually the tomato timers that would be like in your kitchen, because they went up to 20 minutes. I think like there's a whole thing about it, and ours was definitely a modified version of it. But yeah, it's the little like tomato timers.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other comments. So Kathy, I think you've gotten a lot of good feedback on this. So I think we can continue with the rest.
Sure. Yeah. I just thank you all for attending. Thanks for those that could attend the conference last week. I think this was a really impressive conference for us, especially with it being our first solo conference. So so proud of all of us, thankful for all the hard work, and really thank you for your feedback. And as you continue to kind of think and process, I know I haven't had a lot of time to process it myself. Please do share your feedback either in the survey or reach out to any of us, anybody on the board. We're happy to hear your thoughts, and we look forward to 2025. So let's see, Lisa.
Yes, so we still have one more member webinar for this year. Our October one is always our State Archives Showcase, where we feature at least 2 of our archives. This year we're featuring Mississippi and also Alaska. The last couple of years, because of the AWARE grant, we've been trying to feature one of the territories or the non-contiguous. So last year we did American Samoa. We're doing Alaska this year. We'll see what we do next year. So join us for that webinar as well. We have Electronic Records Day coming. October is a big month, and they have a really interesting session set up on metadata best practices. So register and join us for that. We have one more shop talk here in October. We've got Shop Talk with Preservica. For many people, these are not sales pitches. These are our sponsors be giving an opportunity to share something about their product that we might find useful, or how their product's being used. So it's a great way to investigate, and it can be a great way for your staffs to get a little bit of information of what's out there in the market. So we hope you'll join us for that. As always, there's lots of ways to contact us at CoSA. Use as many of them as need be, and we look forward to hearing from you however you choose to communicate. Naturally, we could do none of this work without funding from our two funding sponsors, ILMS and the Mellon Foundation. And of course, our sponsors. They help make everything go round, and they certainly help to make our conference go. As we close out, we try to have a webinar evaluation. I know you guys are getting a little bit tired of evaluations, but they really do help us. And if you'll take a few minutes to just fill out the evaluation on the webinar, that helps the education committee as they plan future webinars. So with that, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. Cathy, Joy, thank you for having us. Any closing words? Okay, if not, thank you for joining us. We'll see you at the next webinar. Have a great time, everyone.